Hey everybody, let's take a minute and talk about maximizing the use of an ultrasonic cleaner to save you time, effort, and money versus a more traditional means, regardless of what project you're working on. Okay, stick around. Okay, so the single most important aspect of an ultrasonic cleaner, assuming that it can actually create the ultrasonic bubbles, is capacity. If you look at the basket size between the two that I have here, there's not a lot of stuff that you can fit in here. You can get some nuts and bolts and very, very small pieces, but compared to the basket here, and then the basket sits at about this level, actually a little deeper. So I've got a lot of real estate up here, a lot of room, but there came a time where I was running out of usable capacity on that thing and I had bigger parts to run. I ran everything from my car that I could in this thing. And as you can assume, I started running out of space and I thought, okay, how is it that I can actually create more volume for that? And that was real simple. Okay, they're ultrasonic bubbles. It passes through stuff, okay? So now I just doubled the capacity of this with just a little Rubbermaid bin, right? Okay, they make taller things. Even with my small basket, I'm able to set a larger container in the smaller cleaner, and it's amazing what you can fit in because, truth be told, I put my engine block in here, okay? Now, granted, it still stuck out a little bit, but it's a 4-cylinder block. Yeah, you're not gonna fit a small block Chevy in here, okay? But I sat it in, filled this container with a degreaser. I filled the actual tank with water because all it needs is a liquid to go through. And then I just put a trash bag over the top of this and I let it do its job. After a while, I'd flip the block over, put it back on, and I ran it just a couple times. And the thing's like smoking hot. You're pulling it out, trying to manage this thing without dropping it and stuff. And it really came out just like if I would have taken my block to a machine shop and had them hot dip it. And for the cost of hot dipping my block, I practically bought my ultrasonic cleaner, okay? Now I've gone and put everything else in here. My crankshaft, I put my whole cylinder head in here, all of my suspension parts, anything and everything that I could fit in here or a taller tub, it would work, okay? And not only did it just clean parts, once I started getting used to how powerful these things can be, well, whatever I took off of the car, whether it's like a control arm or my springs for my suspension, they're just goopy, nasty things. They're still 50-year-old, just caked with everything. Toss it in, who cares? Let it do its thing. And when I'd pull the parts out, and this is one of the things that I didn't realize in the beginning, it was stripping all of the paint off of all of my parts as well. So not only is it just cleaning off the stuff, because like when you go to use like say a blast cabinet, let's get that out of here. When you go to use a sandblast cabinet, you got to clean all of the stuff off of there. Otherwise, all of your media is going to get all gummed up. Nothing's going to work. And you're going to spend more time trying to blow the hose out than actually doing the work. Not to mention that you're still the one doing the work. With this, you put it in, you turn it on, and you just let it do its thing. It's almost like you're automating your workshop, okay? And so this was able to get off all of the grease and grime, of course. It was stripping the paint off of stuff. If you're working on old products, it was stripping gasket material, like on my cylinder head and on my block. That was an original head gasket from 50 years ago. I tried scraping it off. I tried using a razor blade. I tried soaking it with stuff. It was still leaving the residue there. Put it in here, took it out a little while later, and it's pristine. Not to mention that, especially like in my cylinder head, or not my cylinder head, in my block, all of the water passages, perfect. All of the oil galley, perfect. It was like it was brand new right off production line, okay? So these things, they can get into everything. They can do all of the work. Whereas even that, I mean, that still works well for its intended purpose, but there's still stuff that you cannot get to. And there's stuff that you don't want to get to. I'm not going to throw my cylinder head in there and go blasting it, even if I don't touch any of the gasket surfaces. Are you really going to take the chance that you didn't accidentally hit something important and now that thing is gone? Where letting it sit here in the easy bake oven, this thing was amazing how well it worked, okay? So now that I showed you how to increase your capacity with one of these and what you can actually clean, let's move on to the next topic of saving time with the setup and use of this thing. Okay, so now that we talked about maximizing the capacity of one of these things, let's talk about maximizing the effectiveness of it, okay? So regardless of brand or size, all of these will have an internal heater of some sort, okay? So if we think about my small one here, it's not really going to take long to heat this up because it's not that much capacity, right? Well, this one is roughly 5 gallons. It's 22 liters. It takes an ungodly amount of time for the internal heater to get this up to temperature. So let's just say roughly 130 degrees. That's what most houses are. Like if you go turn a faucet on, stick your hand under it when it's full hot, that's 130 degrees, okay? It's not overly, yeah, you're gonna pull your hand out of there, but it's not hot enough to actually be really effective for what we're using these for, okay? So you need it a lot hotter. It would take about an hour and a half for this tank to heat up under its own internal heater, okay? That's too long. It's way too long. And then there's also a limit to what it will heat. I don't know what it is, but they're all gonna have that little fail safe, okay? And I'll tell you why in a second, all right? But the solution to that is one of these. It's an immersion heater, okay? So all you do, it's got a plug on one end, you throw it in, as long as it's submerged, you plug it in and it starts cooking. And then this one comes with this little temperature probe. You throw the lead in there and you get to watch it move because it's not going to shut off. It just heats and keeps heating as long as there's liquid in there, okay? And the downside to that is one time I went ahead, I tossed that in, plugged it in because I wanted to go ahead and start stripping parts again, and got preoccupied with something else out here in the garage. And in a very short amount of time, I start wondering, why does everything smell like degreaser? Because I mean, this thing's always open. There's a lid that sits on it, but it's not sealed. But all of a sudden, there's just this very strong smell of degreaser. And I don't know if I had like the air compressor running or something like that. Well, I turn around, lo and behold, this thing's boiling over, all right? Because the heater, like I said, it's just going to heat. So keep your eye on it, have a set temperature that you want to shut it off at, just unplug it. I actually leave that thing in there when I can because the ultrasonic cleaner is going to sort of descale that heater at the same time. But now you can get your temperatures much hotter, much faster. And if you think about if you're expanding the capacity of this thing, if this took an hour and a half, that's gonna take 2-3 hours to heat up, if not more, depending on what you're trying to actually get in there, okay? So that's getting this thing to work better. The only missing link in the equation now is what you're using inside of it, okay? And that's what we're gonna talk about next. Okay, so the final piece to the puzzle is what you're putting in your ultrasonic cleaner, okay? Because you want it to be as effective and as efficient as possible. So this is the stuff that I prefer to use. Not because it's better than anything else or maybe even different than anything else. This stuff is cheaper than most things. It comes in this nice square container, okay? And that makes a big difference when you're switching between products. I can run a hose off of the drain on the cleaner into this and let it go. It's a lot easier than filling up 5 different 1-gallon jugs, okay? But this stuff works fantastic. That being said, it says that it makes up to 125 gallons of product, okay? Yes, it does, but don't go by that, okay? Learn from my mistakes on that. I started mixing this stuff at the ratios they suggested, and I didn't get the results I wanted. I added more of this stuff and more and more and more, to the point where now it's just, I run it full strength, okay? If you're trying to be efficient and effective and like get really, really good results, whatever your brand is, run it full strength, okay? It's not expensive, and this stuff really, all of this stuff, it lasts a long time. You will come to a point, if you're running like an entire car through it like I am, that, okay, the effectiveness is wearing off. You've got more grease in the tank than you have the degreaser anymore. So eventually, yes, it will run its course, but all of these things are very effective, okay? That being said, pay attention to this, okay? Now, I know from experience that I can reach in this stuff, grab parts out, I can touch it, things like that. I just need to wash my hands soon after if I don't have gloves on. It's not gonna like dissolve my hand off, but pay attention to these warning labels. They're there for a reason, okay? One thing that this is not going to tell you is what your product is safe for, okay? So you can read the back label, you can try and decipher this, but at the end of the day, it's still a marketing piece that's trying to sell a product. It's not gonna necessarily say that by no means stick your vintage carburetors or pistons in here lest they melt. It's not gonna say that kind of stuff, okay? So if you're looking for something to do carburetors or any kind of alloy pieces or strange metals or something like that, unless it specifically says very big and bold that it is okay and safe for that, then do not use it. That's all you need to know, because this stuff doesn't make sense and it doesn't say it. If you go online and look for suggestions, you're just gonna find people arguing about what is and isn't, because there's always like the chemical engineer in there that's talking, and they're gonna say, no, it's perfectly safe. And other people like me are gonna say, no, it turned all the alloy black or it melted the alloy. It doesn't matter unless it specifically says it. Stay away from it, okay? It's hard to find out a specific answer, so just go about it that way. One other thing that I want to touch base on, regardless of what you use, I know other people have recommended using gasoline in these, and though they never came out and said, fill your entire cleaner full of gasoline and hit the heat button, it's bad mixing gasoline and heat and electricity, okay? So I'm saying don't use that. I know they say to put it in a jar, it's for little stuff, things like that. I already told you how one time I boiled this thing over, okay? If you're looking at these, if you look at the reviews, there is a common thread where a lot of the power switches fail. They burn up, okay? And it's one of the little illuminated LED or whatever. It's probably not LED because they melt. It's a little toggle switch with a light in it, okay? Mine melted and popped and thing wouldn't work. It's a simple fix of just putting a jumper wire and deleting the switch. But if I had something flammable in there and now the switch pops, or some people that don't realize that, okay, maybe not putting an immersion heater in something flammable, it might not be a great idea, okay? Don't use products that are flammable. I'm just saying that. People can disagree with me all they want. That's perfectly fine. It's a matter of just playing it safe. Don't do that kind of stuff, okay? And, you know, it's at the end of the day, you're still using some kind of an acid or something. Now, a lot of times in my small machine, sometimes I just use dish soap in there. And if I have a very delicate piece or something that, you know, it's like I just need to like get it clean and I don't want to take a chance, or I don't want to wait for this to heat up, I'll throw that in there and just push some dish soap and water. And that actually works pretty good sometimes. But for the products that I'm throwing in my big unit here, you know, that's not gonna cut it, okay? So there are different things you can use. It doesn't, you know, I've seen people say Pine Sol, you know, it's like using, you know, different household cleaners. You can experiment with that stuff. Just play it safe, okay? Don't be, I don't wanna say don't be stupid, but don't be stupid, okay? That being said, I think that I've covered everything that that I have learned along my journey of using ultrasonic cleaners. It can be a very, very valuable time-saving tool as compared to, you know, a traditional means of sandblasting or using a wire wheel or trying to just do it by hand or with a squirt bottle and a rag, you know. If you got a lot to do, this thing can really be a game changer. So I hope this helped. If this is the information you're looking for, I hope other people can learn from my mistakes and learn from my experiences. And I don't know, I guess all you got to do is get back to work now. So I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks a lot.